Hey guys, today I'm going to break down what I think are the best Canon RF lenses that you can get for under $500 in 2025. So maybe you've recently picked up an RF mount camera and you're looking to expand your lens collection a little bit without breaking the bank too much. Well, then hopefully this video will help. Canon RF glass can get seriously pricey, but there are actually a bunch of affordable gems that are still going to give you killer image quality for a decent price, especially if you are willing to buy used. So let's get into it. I'll share my top picks and one little weakness for each of these lenses and what they cost, both new and used. So let's get started. And the first one is easy. It is the Canon RF 50mm 1.8, the legendary Nifty 50, and it's actually the cheapest native RF lens, and honestly, personally, one of my absolute favorites. So what makes this lens great? Well, it is super compact and it's lightweight, and this makes it perfect to bring along to any shoot. It's very sharp in the center, even wide open at f1.8, and it becomes absolutely fantastic from f2.8 onwards, and at that point compares to any of the L series lenses that I own. The 50mm focal length is just so versatile. I love it for portraits. But it's also great for travel. Street photography and any kind of everyday shooting. You name it, I always just throw this in my camera backpack and bring it along to photo shoots or say on a trip, and it never ever lets me down for amazing portraits and travel shots. The bokeh is really nice too. It gives you plenty of depth to your images and tons of background separation in your portraits, which I love. I've even actually compared this Nifty 50 to my favorite lens of all time and the much more premium 51.2L, and I was genuinely surprised by how well this little lens keeps up, considering that it is a fraction of the cost of the 1.2 version or even the new 1.4 version. This lens does really well next to those absolute titans. So what is the downside? Well, it does have a lot of vignettes, so darkening in the corners, especially when wide open. It fixes up nicely in post, but still, that's worth knowing. And what's the price? It is $200 new, but you can easily grab one of these for around $100. Here in the UK, I paid just over £100 for mine on the used market. Next up is the Canon RF 35mm 1.8 prime lens, and this I think is probably the best all-rounder on this entire list. Where do I even start with this lens? Because I have used it so much over the years. It was one of the first RF lenses that I bought. It is perfect for environmental portraits. The travel, the street photography, and it just does it all, and it does it all well. 35mm in general is really, really versatile. It's a nice standard field of view that lends itself to pretty much any type of photography, and you get it in a nice, small, lightweight package. My favorite use case is definitely dreamy environmental travel portraits. This prime excels for that, and it's very sharp, wide open, especially in the center, and compares pretty favorably to the new, much more expensive f1.4 version when I tested them side by side. Step this lens down to 2.8 and then it's pretty much perfect throughout the frame. And what makes this particular lens really special is that it's got both macro capabilities, which is really useful, but it's also got lens image stabilization, which in my opinion makes it probably the best lens for video on this list. And I've used this lens for video purposes when traveling so many times, and it has never let me down. So what's the downside? I would say it's the STM motor. It is not silent, especially in photo mode. So if you're using internal mics or shooting in really quiet environments, then the focusing noise of this lens is gonna be noticeable. Price in the US is $499, I got mine used in the UK for just over £300, and that is the route that I would definitely recommend going because there are plenty of these on the used market. Alright, now onto the only zoom on this list, the Canon RF 24-105 f4 to f7.1 kit lens. And you can pick these little zoom lenses up really, really cheap since people often get them with their camera as a kit lens and sell them right away. But people are definitely sleeping on this lens, honestly. It really shocked me when I tested this zoom lens side by side with some of the other primes on this list. I can't say I've used this lens a lot, but in terms of sharpness, it is way better than I expected and holds up surprisingly well against any other lens on this list, either matching it or quite often beating them. It's a small, lightweight lens, it has excellent autofocus, and it also has lens IS built in. And this zoom range, 24-105, is basically unbeatable for travel or any kind of everyday shooting. Covers you for your wide shots right through to telephoto, all in a single lens. What's the downside? It's gonna be that variable aperture. So that means the more you zoom in, the darker it gets. So this lens is not really ideal for low light situations. And you're also not really going to get a ton of background separation and depth to portraits. And price in the US, it's $399 new, but you can easily find it for half that on the used market. And that is 100% the way to go with this particular lens because people are selling these in practically mint condition all the time after buying a camera with it included as a kit lens. Next up, the portrait king of budget primes, the Canon RF 85mm f2 lens. And this lens, it's another one that I think gets overlooked way too often, but I've been loving this lens recently, especially for weddings. It's just an incredible entry into portrait photography, probably the sharpest lens on this list as well. This lens is absolutely tack sharp right from f2 with incredible bokeh and really beautiful rendering and character. This lens will really make your portraits stand out, and the 85mm focal length is just so flattering for headshots and really just portraits in general. But again, the focal length and fast aperture makes it great for weddings, events, sports, and so much more. And just like the 35mm 1.8, this lens has image stabilization and really useful macro functionality, which is another reason why I love it for weddings. And I've compared this lens side by side with the very expensive 85mm f1.2, and I was really impressed by how well this cheaper lens keeps up in terms of sharpness and rendering in certain situations when up against what I think is probably the best portrait lens that Canon has ever made. Downside, definitely the autofocus. It can be a little bit finicky, especially for that close-up macro stuff. So my tip would be to use manual focus for macro work, which is generally the best thing to do anyway. And make sure you have this focus limiter switched on for portraits, because that's going to make a big difference and can stop some of the annoying focus hunting that you might experience with this lens sometimes. But just turn that limiter on and it won't be an issue. Price is just over $500, so to get it for $500, you're gonna have to go used. Next up on the list is an absolute killer pancake lens, the RF 28mm f2.8 prime lens. And this thing is tiny. It's practically invisible on camera. It's as close to having no lens on your camera as you can get, which makes it a dream for travel, street, or just any low profile shooting in general. And that just makes it so fun to use. The autofocus is fantastic, and this lens gives you incredible images with really nice colors and contrast. I personally love 28mm for wide but natural looking shots that really lends itself to anything really, but I love it for travel shots and environmental portraits. And the sharpness on this lens is seriously impressive. It is razor sharp at any aperture. And I'd say it punches way above its weight. It is one of the sharpest RF mount lenses that I've used, and I've used most of them. And that same sharpness also makes it a great pick for APSC cameras, where it gives you roughly around a 45mm equivalent field of view. What's the downside? To be honest, with this lens, I'm gonna have to nitpick and say maybe the slightly unusual or uncommon front filter thread size. That's a little bit annoying, but like the others, I suppose it's got a little bit of vignette, but other than that, there are really no downsides to this lens. In terms of price, it's a bargain at $299 brand new in the US, and used, you're gonna get it for closer to $200. Now, if you are into landscapes or maybe vlogging, then next on the list, this lens is a no-brainer. It's the Canon RF 16mm f 2.8 prime. And I haven't used this lens as much as I should, but when I compared it to Canon's much more expensive RF 15-35 or RF 16-28 lenses, this little lens really held its own. This is a really sharp lens, right from 2.8, with great colors, and you're gonna get fantastic dramatic results with this ultra wide focal length. It is really small and lightweight too, making it a perfect entry into landscape photography. Downside, it leans pretty heavily on digital corrections to clean up distortion and vignette in post, but I think the final images still look awesome. Price-wise, it's $279 new and around $200 used, so solid value for anybody wanting to try wide-angle work without breaking the bank. All right, time for my honorable mention, which also happens to be easily my number one pick for APS-C shooters, and this is the Canon RF 24mm 1.8 prime. And this is another lens that I don't see receive nearly enough praise in my opinion. It is incredibly sharp right from 1.8. It's great for travel and really nice for environmental portraits. It's also fantastic for video thanks to its built-in stabilization, providing really nice smooth video clips. I've also used it extensively on the Canon R7, and it was one of the few cheaper primes that performed really well on that very demanding crop sensor. And on APS-C, it gives you a really versatile, approximately 35mm equivalent field of view. So if you have a Canon R7 or any of the other APS-C Canon RF cameras, this is easily the prime that I would recommend you give a try. Downside, again, a bit of a theme here, the autofocus is a little bit noisy and it relies a lot on digital corrections to fix the vignette and distortion in post. But once you're past that, it performs really well. So in terms of price, it's $599 new, so you will need to go used to get it under that $500 mark. And in the UK at least, it's one of the harder lenses to find used. Here in the UK, it's maybe not quite as popular as the rest on this list, but definitely worth hunting down. So those are my top Canon RF lens picks under $500 in 2025. Let me know in the comments which one you would pick up, or maybe you already own one of these lenses and love it, or maybe there's a lens that you think should have made this list but didn't. And if you'd like to see any kind of real world shootouts or comparisons between any of these lenses, whether it's comparing them against each other or against their, say, premium L series counterparts, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to put that together. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss it. Also, check out the links in the description for individual dedicated thorough reviews of some of the lenses on this list, as well as any comparisons between them that I've done in the past. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was useful and I'll see you all next time.